Well, hello, and thank you for joining me for another Alex on Tech and Tech Advice.life video interview. I'm here today with Jamie Zajac. She's the Vice President of Product at Recorded Future, the world's largest intelligence company, empowering its clients with the right intelligence at the right time to keep their people and infrastructure safe. Welcome to the program.
Awesome. Thanks. Great to be here, Alex.
Thank you for taking the time. Now, let's start at the beginning. For those who are unfamiliar with Recorded Future, what does being an intelligence company mean? And in brief, as we go more into more detail in a moment, what's the short version of how you do it?
Yeah. So Recorded Future, we're an intelligence company, and our mission is to secure the world with intelligence. So what does that actually mean? Well, cyber risk and physical risk is no longer a niche issue for businesses. It's not something that a few of the techies are worried about now. It's actually become a significant business issue. When we look at ransomware threats, when we look at the compliance risk of a breach or a disclosure, when we look at the brand reputation risk that a cyber attack can have on your business, it's become a big issue that needs to be dealt with. So what we do is produce and help organizations produce intelligence so they can really understand what is happening in that landscape. So, for example, who's going to try to target me with a cyber attack? Why are they going to try to target me? What are they trying to get? Are they trying to steal information? Are they trying to get money? What are the ways that they're going to try to attack me? How can I defend against these things? What are the actions I can take to mitigate that? So when we say intelligence, we're really looking at giving businesses the information that they need so they can take some action to mitigate or stop the cyber attack or the physical threat or the geopolitical issue that might be targeting their business and thwart it, hopefully, before it starts or gets too far.
So you're the VP of product. What is your platform and what are your products and services? I mean, does it actually include any cybersecurity tools, or do you just give the intelligence that you can then use to protect yourself against with other tools on the market?
Yeah. So we're a SaaS platform, 100% focused on intelligence for all sorts of threats, cyber threats, physical threats, geopolitical issues, etc. So what we do is effectively use automation, use machine scale, level machines and such to go out and gather as much information that exists in open source, in dark web forums, in technical areas and analysis that we're doing, and bring that all together to make it useful for something. So the kind of products or the areas that we tend to focus is, one, how to identify and mitigate ransomware threats towards your business, how to help automate security workflows, that you're trying to employ in your SOC or in your vulnerability programs, other things like that, to help protect your digital risk surface and exposures, to understand, how is someone trying to leverage your brand, or how is someone trying to leverage your technical infrastructure to attack your company, and also to understand what your supply chain risk looks like based on the vendors that you work with, based on the contractors, the software that you procure and bring into the business. What are the risks that you're introducing to the business from that, from a cyber perspective, from a geopolitical perspective? What are the issues you need to be aware of, and how can you mitigate them? So using the product to kind of automate and produce intelligence around these kind of key areas that you can put to work, that you can actually drive some of this business risk reduction from.
So to be clear, though, you're not actually offering cybersecurity products that will then protect endpoints. That's the responsibility of the vendors you're already working with. But you give extra information that really expands, your visibility of the battlefield, as it were, and makes a material difference across all the areas that you just spoke about.
Yeah, and we'll see that the intelligence gets integrated into a lot of those tools. So if we look at an endpoint tool or a firewall or a SIM, it's great to collect the different data and have that telemetry and visibility. When you then combine it with the intelligence that we're putting into that to say, hey, what's actually bad? What's really, really bad? What's targeting me? That's where those threats become much more visible, to say, hey, wait a minute, we've got a real problem here. That's an initial access vector that tends to lead to ransomware. We need to have some people jumping on that immediately. So using the intelligence combined with those tools actually helps kind of elevate the effectiveness of the different other security tools or controls that are deployed.
And I'm assuming that, because when you get too many notifications, it becomes noise, that your system is able to intelligently, sort through all of that, sift through all of that, and make sure that you've got the most important notifications there that you need to take action on now. And I mean, if there's other things that need to be looked at later, that's all part of the platform that the relevant people in an organization can be checking.
Yeah. So, I think there's no shortage of security tools out there that an organization can buy. And I think it's only exploded with people now buying cloud-specific tools and application-specific tools and browser-specific tools. the alert fatigue, the alert problem is real. And so just like intelligence can help you identify what's risky there, we can also just as well say what's benign. Hey, this IP that keeps pinging your network, it's actually just a security researcher out there, totally benign. You should just ignore it. So being able to identify, kind of take things out of the middle, is it good or bad? Take things out of the middle and send it to one area is just as important, whether you're sending it to high or whether you're sending it to low.
So I guess I could imagine, but what are the types of companies, partners and organizations that are your customers? I mean, I realize you might not be able to name specific customers, but presumably you can tell us at least the industries that they're in.
Yeah. So, the thing about intelligence is, broadly speaking, every, organization, every industry needs it to be able to get more effective and more efficient at what they're doing. It used to be that intelligence was really focused on, highly regulated industries, financial industries, certain governments, things like that. But as we've seen in the last several years, every type of industry is being targeted for different reasons. Critical infrastructure is being targeted by, perhaps, APTs that are, trying to pre-position for attacks. Certain schools are being targeted because they can just gain a whole bunch of information and the compliance risk is large. So we focus on the enterprise-sized customers and governments of the world versus the small businesses. We, more of our partners would be the route there. But we do see broadly across many industries, critical infrastructure, manufacturing, healthcare, financial, governments as kind of some of our key focus areas.
Now, I know that we're in Australia, you're in Australia right now to, I guess, see customers and partners and the landscape. But what do you see are the emerging threats that organizations and governments in Australia will face in 2024? And are they any different to anywhere else in the world?
Yeah. So, I'll highlight three, and you can always read more about these in, one of our recent annual threat reports that we just put out. So at recordedfuture.com, you can gain access to that and read it. But the three I'll highlight, the first one is ransomware. We continue to see ransomware as a threat. Unfortunately, the cyber criminals have found an effective technique, an effective business model for their own operations, and that's going to continue to be a challenge. We'll see law enforcement takedown activities, as we've seen recently with, Lockbit and others happening. But, we're still going to see these cyber criminals being quite clever and finding ways to continue their operations. The second is around using stolen identities to launch cyber attacks. So it used to be that, the hackers had to be incredibly sophisticated and build these, vulnerability exploits and malware and really launch a quite sophisticated attack. What we've seen now is that once someone's credentials have been stolen via phishing, via social engineering, via infostealer malware, the cyber criminals just need to go on the dark web and they can buy a credential for about $10. And it takes about 10 minutes and I can impersonate, your machine, or a cyber criminal could impersonate your machine and just simply log into the business network. And so this is an attack that, because it's quite easy and cheap for cyber criminals to launch, has become more prevalent. So we're going to continue to see the use of stolen identities as an initial access vector into organizations, that's working. And the third trend that we see is that global tensions are continuing to drive an increase in cyber activities. Unfortunately, the wars and the geopolitical tension across companies or countries is kind of at a high, right now in the world. And so what we see is an uptick in cyber activity associated with that, whether it's an organization pre-positioning to gather intelligence or to gather information for a negotiation, whether it's hacktivisms that are supporting their cause or supporting their country of interest, their cause of interest, going after people with other views. We see that global tensions are driving an increase in cyber activity related to them. And so that's going to continue to be a challenge, not just for governments, but also for organizations that are part of critical infrastructure, that are part of critical industries and economic powers, as well as having certain views on political issues that exist. These are things that we're seeing globally, but certainly the specifics and the way they manifest themselves are unique per region. So, certain cyber criminals go after certain types of businesses in certain regions. They use different tools, techniques, and procedures to do that. And so, though the threat landscape might have some similarities across regions, the specifics of how they're implemented are unique.
So how is Recorded Future working with customers globally to help identify these threats and mitigate them?
Yeah, so I think having the best information is good, but there's really two key parts that make intelligence very useful. One is it needs to be specific and actionable to the organization. So saying, hey, there's ransomware threats, is great, But then we're trying to do is help people say, and here are the specific ransomware groups and the specific techniques that are trending in other organizations like yours. Here's the actions that you can take. So being specific and actionable. And then second is driving automation. We'll talk a little bit about this, I think later on, but being able to actually make sure that the intelligence is applied automatically is helping the people who are trying to put the defenses in place, having that happen as quickly as possible. So having intelligence that's specific and actionable and being able to automate it are kind of two key areas.
Well, the next topic that's huge in the last couple of years is AI, was the big topic of 2023, and it's only exploding in importance and capabilities in 2024. So how is AI helping not only the threat actors, but helping recorded intelligence to fight back? How can AI help augment humans and defend democracy and Western way of life and people's freedoms against converging threats?
Yeah. So if we look at it from the attacker's perspective, AI is definitely lowering the barrier to entry for threat actors. So, it used to be that you would watch recorded a video about how to stop phishing attacks or how to identify phishing attacks as maybe part of your annual cyber training. And they would say, look for typos or look for kind of poor use of the language because maybe it was written by someone who didn't have the best command of that language. But now with AI, these techniques aren't good. They can write incredibly accurate and sophisticated and targeted, phishing emails very quickly. They can also use it to increase their technical sophistication. So maybe they're a mid-level coder, but when you use AI to support you, you can maybe punch up a little bit higher with what you're able to create. So it's increasing the sophistication of threat actors, lowering the barrier to entry on certain techniques. So that makes, the horrible side, oh my God, it's a complex environment, and now the threat actors have this extra advantage. On the defender side, we're, Recorded Future, we're using AI as well to fight back. Now, we've been using machine learning and different techniques for years, but obviously generative AI is the, large language models is this kind of, new area that we're able to explore. So what we've built at Recorded Future is an AI that's dedicated to intelligence. So it's the first AI for intelligence. And what I mean by that is it's specifically dedicated to producing good intelligence, not to consumer level questions. So we're not writing it, asking it to write me a poem or a rap song. We're using it to produce intelligence. It's transparent. So when we're going to say, hey, here are the threats that are relevant to your business, we can't have an AI hallucinating and making that up. How is APT 41 going to target your company? A guess is not good enough. So we're using transparent, evidence-based AI. So everything that we put in our AI is superscript back to the original source where it came from that we're summarizing and that we're using for that. So it can be trustworthy, it can be transparent. And really, I see AI as an opportunity to kind of act as an expansion of your team. So, if you have either junior analysts or people that are, really trying to punch above their weight to get better and stronger, using AI as a complement to them to ask questions, to outsource some of the analysis, to have them be able to summarize and produce a report that others can read and take action on. These are ways that AI, can help. Ultimately, I think our job as defenders is to act at the speed of the adversary. If they're using AI, we need to be using AI even better than them, or else they gain that advantage. And we want to have the information advantage on our side.
And this is all part of the recently launched Enterprise AI for Intelligence, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, really our goal was to focus on solving intelligence production, speed, accuracy issues that people were having to be able to produce it, good actionable intelligence that the enterprise can use with transparency, with evidence-based, protocols built into the AI from the start. That really means you can actually trust what the AI is generating as opposed to questioning if it's guessing or not.
Now, another big topic in this space is the issue of mental health and wellness. And since 2022, I've been following a company called Cyberminds with a Z at the end, or a Z, as we would say in the US, in the UK or Australia, .org, cyberminds.org. And they are the world's first mental wellness program for cybersecurity professionals, which is important because, cybersecurity people, even if you're an ER doctor, it's obviously very stressful and you might be operating on somebody all night, but at the end of the day, you can sort of go home and most likely you can switch off, even though obviously the stresses remain. But with the cybersecurity threat landscape and the ever-evolving nature of that, if you get a phone call at 2 a.m, it's probably not your boss telling you you've done a great job. It's like, we're under attack, information is leaking out, come and help us right now. And there was a pre-pandemic report, and it's only gotten worse since then, that in the UK, the average CISO lasted in the job about 24 months, and then they left the industry and became an accountant or a dog walker or something that just wasn't anywhere near as stressful. And even Sophos, one of the big global security companies, put out a report report just in the last couple of weeks. I have an article about it on my site. And instead of the normal ransomware and malware and, not patching and all that sort of stuff, this was specifically focusing on mental health and wellness, because it's become this huge issue. The taboo is sort of going away. So I'm just wondering, how is Recorded Future looking at this? It must be factoring into your future plans.
Yeah, I think this is one of the contributing reasons to why there's a shortage of talent in cybersecurity. Is even if you train someone up, if they leave the industry after a short period of time, it's not good enough, right? We need to be able to solve that. And I think a lot of this comes from, the pressures that are on them. Defenders can pretty much only ever be wrong. You hardly ever get praised for taking a proactive action, because it's hard to loop back to, what did that actually, help? But it's very easy to say you missed. It's very easy to say this threat got through. It caused us this fine. It caused us this outage. It caused us this compliance issue. So defenders almost can only ever be blamed just based on the structure. So where I see us trying to help is, help the defenders be right more often with intelligence, with actionable intelligence, with being specific. And I think back to the AI point, I think this is a great example of how can AI actually help improve that team, lower the stress a little bit, automate some of these recurring things that are just taking time, that are tedious, that can lead to mistakes, even by the best of people, if you do something that's, repeatedly, and be more effective in that organization. So I think for sure it's a big problem. I think we see it with the talent shortage and people even wondering if they should get into this space given some of these challenges. But I do think they're solvable problems if we look at how, as an industry at large, not only do we treat our people, but how do we make the best use of our tools and our technology to hopefully, help those defenders win more than they lose.
Yeah, well, just to finish on this, I mean, one of the Cyberminds taglines is defending the defenders. And one of the things they're trying to do is make sure that this is taught in universities. So new entrants into the cybersecurity or just into the cyber industry in general actually have the tools to, prevent burnout in the first place. But it's all about burnout recovery and prevention. And I'm personally very glad to see this is now a focus, because it's an important. And if you lose the people in your industry, in your business, all that corporate knowledge is gone, and you don't have the older, wiser heads sort of guiding the younger people, which is, always, I mean, it's the way things work. But I'm glad to see you working on that. Now, before I ask you some closing questions, what else do we need to know about Recorded Future that we haven't already discussed?
Yeah, I think it's important to know that we're focused on, intelligence. There's so many security tools out there that exist, like we've talked about, whether it's a firewall, an EDR, XDR tool, a vulnerability, scanner. There's so many things out there that we're really focused on. How can we produce actionable intelligence that can be integrated into those tools, that can actually raise the effectiveness or the efficacy bar of them for your organizations by having a good understanding of where to focus, by making sure it's integrated and actionable, and by being able to measure the outcomes as well, and actually kind of, prove where this is helping. Because it's not just enough to buy a basic security tool or implement a basic practice anymore. The world's complex, and so intelligence can help organizations raise their bar, and that's our focus.
Now, I know, future roadmaps are normally secret, but are there any sort of hints you can give us on how you see the company evolving over the next 12 months through to the end of the decade?
Yeah, so I think the landscape is complex. There's so much going on. Our focus is really around, continuing to find ways to make the intelligence specific to the organization. I think very general information, kind of, at a high level, is good. But then when we say, okay, for this organization, these are the defenses that need to be put in place. These are the threat hunts that we need to run. This is the vulnerability that if you patch this one, it's going to have an outsized impact on reducing your risk. It's specific, it's actionable. That's really where we see, I kind of mentioned earlier, there's so many tools that are producing alerts, producing telemetry, producing information. Our goal is to say, we're not just another tool that's going to produce more alerts for your organization. We're actually going to help identify the 1% of alerts there that really matter, and the 5% that actually should be thrown away as benign or as not really actionable. So being able to guide some of those differences. So you'll see us investing more and more in specific intelligence for each organization, more and more in making sure it can be put to work through automation, integrated directly into tools, and then kind of measuring back out really what is the effect of this, what controls are working, what areas are being most effective, invest more here because this is working. This control over here isn't actually, providing you much. Let's reallocate some of those resources.
So what is a day in the life like for you as the VP of product?
All right. Well, I have the best job in the world. So, I might be slightly biased on that point. But, running product, what that looks like is working closely with a whole sorts of different customers to understand, where are they being attacked? Where are they struggling to build automation? What's causing them challenges? And then, intersecting that with our, world-class researchers, and our engineering teams and our design teams and our consultants and all of these people to try to find a solution. So if we really identify, hey, here are the problems that customers are having, they're not quite, confident in their decision making here, they're struggling with automation there, then how can we build a product that can automate that can make that repeatable, that can help solve some of those problems? So getting to work with a lot of people, that's why I'm here in Australia, to make sure we understand exactly what the customers are facing here, what challenges they have that are unique and what's common, and building great products to help solve them.
So I always like to ask the people I'm interviewing, can you please share a memory of your first personal computer?
Yes. Well, so I don't have this pivotal day in my mind where, our first computer came into the house or something like that. So I just kind of have two things that I was reflecting upon. One was hitting spacebar a lot to play Oregon Trail. That was maybe one of my first.
On the Apple II?
Yeah. I'm not even sure what computer it was, but a lot of spacebar hitting. And then somehow, as a kid, I don't remember exactly, but I somehow learned DOS command line and became the de facto troubleshooter in my family for the computer. And I guess that just set my career on the trajectory that it was, that computers were going to be part of my career forever, whether I liked it or not. And luckily I like it.
Yeah, I remember I was expert at reconfiguring people's autoexec.bat and config.sys so they could get more of that upper memory above the 640K, and certain games and programs would just run much more efficiently and better because they had that little bit of extra memory. So yeah, I remember those days very fondly as well.
Yeah.
Now, my second last question, can you please share some of the best advice you've ever received to help you get where you are today?
Yeah. So I think the best advice I ever got was probably just someone reminding me to be myself. So I really remember this one meeting. I was quite young in my career, and I got invited to a meeting with a lot of people above, quite high titles above me. And I sat there quietly, really just trying to listen and understand. And afterwards, my manager came to me about the meeting, and he's like, "Hey, why didn't you participate?" And I was like, "Well, I was, trying to really listen and make sure I understood." And he was like, No. You were there for a reason. Be yourself, participate, or you're not going to be in the room." And so I really remember, that kind of hit me, that there's a reason that you're invited to be in the room and be part of the conversation. Make the most of that. Be yourself, speak your opinion, speak up when you have something to say. Because if your opinion didn't matter, you wouldn't be in the room to begin with. So the fact that you're there, really take advantage of that. And I think that's, given me the ability to participate, to speak up, to really challenge sometimes the norm, and led to a lot of success as well.
So Jamie, what is your final message to the viewers, listeners, and readers?
Yeah. So, the online world is full of threats, people coming after our businesses, coming after our personal lives, trying to scam us out of money, trying to scam businesses out of money. We all have to remain, vigilant in what we're doing and how we're acting and how our business is online. I think the first step there is knowing, what the threats are and how they're likely to target you. So you can kind of, have the radar up, whether it's business technical, defenses, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's you as an employee of your business, deploying all of these. And I think a lot of that comes from, starting with even some of the basics, listening to podcasts, to know what's happening, to produce and read good intelligence reports that's, specific about what's going on. And I think with that good understanding, I do believe that as defenders, we have a real fighting shot at actually winning the game more than we lose it, by getting the right defenses in place, by tuning them, by keeping our people motivated, by keeping automation running. I do believe that there's a positive trajectory that we can be on as long as we do the right things. So, hopefully we can all take some motivation from that.
Well, Jamie Zajac, Vice President of Product at Recorded Future, largest intelligence company in the world. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your time in Australia, and I do hope we get to speak again in the future.
I look forward to it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.